Oh. There's going to come a time where you need a temporary way to lift your work off the ground and up to working height. It could be because you're painting some new shaker cabinets for a kitchen remodel that you're doing, or you need flat surfaces to display your goods at a garage sale like I'm about to do. Or maybe you're just at a job site and you need a flat, stable surface to cut some wood on. It happens. But how do we do that? Sawhorses are the answers to our problems, friends.
Okay, but why don't we just go down to the big box store and buy some of those fancy metal folding ones?
No! I mean, you can, but we don't learn anything from that except how to go to one of the big box stores and swipe our credit card. We don't leave with any new skills or experiences. Plus, I own a set of those fancy metal folding leg sawhorses and I hate them. They're heavy, clunky to move around. I can't screw into them. If I accidentally saw into them with my saw blade, that's bad news bears. This is a great example of how much I hate these things. I didn't even bother to put the thing in its standing position to make this little bit of B-roll because I hate unfolding the legs and folding them back up. And they're expensive. For the price of just one, I can build a pair of wooden sawhorses. That's value for money. Let's build. But what kind of sawhorses are we making? Right, there are a lot of different designs out there, so let's take a look at some of the different features that we want these sawhorses to have. Sawhorse wish list. What we want from these things. We know we want them to be budget friendly. We don't want to break the bank building them. We know we want them to be strong. Ain't no wimpy sawhorses around here. We know we want them to be repairable in case we do something stupid and are dipshits by running our saw blade into our sawhorses. I've done that before, don't tell anybody. We know we want them to be modular. I don't know why I wrote it out like that, but in other words, we want them to be versatile and multifunctional so that our one tool isn't only used for one purpose. And then I gotta throw that in there because apparently that's what you do on YouTube, so... But don't feel obligated to. It's cool enough already that you're just watching this video. My self-esteem will survive if you don't hit that sub button. But if you want to, you know, it's there. So a good foldable option would be the half sheet of plywood style of sawhorse. It folds up nice and slim. You can tuck it away really easy. Pretty quick and simple to build. Don't need a lot of materials. But right off the bat, I think the problem with it is it's not going to be budget friendly. At $40 for a sheet of plywood right now, they're pretty expensive. Yeah, you can get two kind of out of a full sheet. But even then, 3/4 inch plywood, when you get this kind of length on it, and there, you have to cut this section out, there's a little bit of flex to it. Yeah, I understand that this is a model, but even in the real life thing, there's still a little bit of flex to it, and I'm not sure I would trust that with a ton of weight. It could support weight for sure, but I don't know if that's going to be the ultimate option. So then, moving up from there, getting a little bit stronger and still being cheap is 2x4s. Yes, I understand wood prices are extremely high right now, but 2x4s are still pretty inexpensive. As you can already tell from these ones, they are stackable, which saves space. Space in a small shop is at a premium, something we're always trying to save. So, they're cheap, they're pretty easy to build, but not quite as stable as you would think, even with these parts being half-lapped into the cross member. Because these are free floating at the bottom, there's still a bit of give to them, and they can rack a little bit. Not a ton. These are strong, don't get me wrong, but I think that they could be stronger. So then we move up in difficulty. We add some cross braces all the way around to stop the racking, to stop any sort of leg movement really. And then we also take this center cross member and turn it into almost an I-beam with 3 2x4s. These are still pretty inexpensive to build, still pretty easy and crazy strong. They're still budget friendly, but they're not very modular. Can't change anything out on them very easily, and try as we might, we can't stack them. So they take up a lot of space. You have to pretty much stack them like that, and then I guess you could do square, but not ideal. So let's take a few things from each of those realms and combine them together. What do we get? So we have something that's foldable. Starts off really thin so you can tuck it away or hang it on a wall. We splay the legs for added support. Splay them this way, again because they're foldable, and you have these cross members on there. That sets you up with a pretty stable base. How do we make it modular? The top part, as you can tell, which is missing, inserts in and can be removed. So that means you can make custom top bars or cross members to have different features, like a clamping rack. A clamping rack, little slots cut in here, or you could even put a platform on top of it for a miter saw station, whatever you want. Stick those in there, tighten these two up with a rope or a strap, like this one, and now you have an extremely strong, very, very stable, no rack or play in it surprisingly, little sawhorse. Still easy to build, still pretty cheap, and I think it covers all the bases that we want. Yeah, cool design, but how am I supposed to cut fancy compound miters without fancy tools? Let me show you something. So the tricky thing about the cuts on these legs is that they're not only angled like this, but also angled like this. Wait, that's probably not the easiest thing for you guys to see. They're angled this way and this way at the same time. The easiest way to mark this out is with two bevel gauges. One digital and one analog. We need 2 degrees for this cut. We need a 10 degree and a 22.5. So we use the first bevel gauge, set it to 10 degrees, and we use it. That's obviously not set to 10 degrees. To set the analog, then we can take this one, set it to 22.5. Right there. So this cut is this way and this way. Pull this line around. Now the easiest way to make this cut with your saw is to establish a kerf along one angle first. Then once that kerf's there, you can actually angle your blade to go the opposite way, or for the other angle, and then follow it down. Damn it. So, we've got our 22.5 degree, perfect. $10 degrees. Very nice. Now these legs are 32 inches from the furthest tip to the other furthest tip. So you have to turn them over, measure from that furthest point down there, which I've already done, to 32 inches, and then carry that line around. And then strike our line, which is actually going to be the exact same as it was down here. So on this angle and this angle, and cut. Just take your time with selecting lumber to go through the pile, trying to find pieces with the least amount of knots, or wane, that's where it's missing lumber, where there used to be bark, and sticks that are nice and straight without too much cup. And then once you have one of these legs cut, you can actually just use it as a template to mark the length of the other ones, and you can take a couple clamps, clamp it where it needs to be. And that is going to be makeshift as all hell. But you can actually use this as a saw guide with a Japanese saw to perfectly cut your next one. Oh, that was a good idea. And that is perfectly flush. Perfectly flush. Nice. So I'm cutting these on the ground instead of that makeshift workbench back there just to kind of show that it can be done. And there's a lot of different things that you can use as makeshift workbenches, like these stools here. Just if you're going to use anything from inside the house, might want to check with the wife or partner first, you know, otherwise. Okay, we've got all of our legs cut. There's 9 of them there, not 8. You're right. That's because this one is actually a not well selected board. It's exactly what I was saying we shouldn't look for, in the sense that it has a bow to it. That means it's curved along this way. If it was curved this way, that would be a crook. If it was curved this way, that would be a cup. So that knot right there has caused it to bow pretty severely, to the point that I don't think it's going to work well for a leg. So this is actually a discard. But now that we have all the legs cut, in this case, there's going to be 8 pieces, 4 for each set. We can go about cutting the notches so that when these scissors, they actually capture the cross member. Yeah, okay, that's cool, but what if we don't have 2 bevel gauges and we need to cut compound miters? Right, for that you can use a speed square. So this is what we're looking to end up with. A chunk cut out of this corner, and there'll be an opposite one like this that'll match up. This is at 22.5 degrees. This is at 10 degrees, so they've flip-flopped. The easiest way to do this with a speed square is just to measure 3 inches down from here. So 3 inches down from the corner. And then we're actually going to want to angle it this way. So we line that pivot point right up on the corner, go to 22.5, strike a line, carry that line around a little bit. And then we got to go 10 degrees. So same thing, put it on the pivot point. Actually, that won't work because we can't see it. So we got to go from this angle. Hit it at 10 degrees and then slide it up until it meets. Strike that line. So this is a little bit more of a difficult way to do it. If you have bevel gauges, I would absolutely use the bevel gauges, or I would highly recommend you get a set of bevel gauges for this sort of thing. But I just wanted to show you it can be done with a speed square. So we'll cut this out and then get on to the next step. Now you're probably asking yourself, why is he cutting these pivot holes by hand with a bit and brace? And it's a really good question. Honestly, the short and sweet answer of it is I just made a video about buying this at a woodworking estate sale and how you don't need fancy tools to do stuff. So I kind of have to put my money where my mouth is and use it. Otherwise I look like a bit of an idiot. It's really not that bad. They're kind of fun to use. I screwed it up by talking, but I'll do another one where I don't say a word, and it's kind of like woodworking ASMR. Now that we got these pivot holes now that we have these pivot holes cut, we can put them together, or at least assemble the legs with the pivoting bolt before we start adding cross braces. That's relatively easy. You just take 2 that are opposing to each other. Carriage bolt, pop that through. 2 washers in between the 2 pieces. Another washer on the back end, nylon locking nut, tighten her down. The carriage bolt, because it has this square shank on it, actually bites into the wood on this end, so you don't have to hold it on over here to bolt it down. This holds itself in place, so you can just crank her down. And there we go. Ta-da! What have I done? Good morning. I f***ed up. They don't work. Remember when I said that they're supposed to be 32 inches from corner to corner, or tip to tip, furthest tip to furthest tip? I was wrong, so I hope you haven't cut any of your material yet, because that's not the right dimension. What it's actually supposed to be, since they're parallelograms, is just 32 inches on each edge. From this corner to this corner, 32 inches. This corner to this corner, 32 inches. This one to this one, this one to this one, all 32 inches. So effectively, I cut all of this material and made all of my legs about 1.75 inches too short. I put this one together last night to make sure that it would work before I did it on camera, and, you know, well, it didn't work. These keep running into these cross members and don't allow it to open up all the way. Well, that's stupid, Cody. Why don't you just drop these down a little bit, make them a little bit shorter, make the whole thing work? My sweet summer child. I can't. I wish I could, but I'm a little bit of a perfectionist with this sort of stuff. And if I don't do it correctly, it's gonna bother the hell out of me. Even though they'll work, even though I'll be able to put things on them and use them as sawhorses, it's gonna really bug me knowing that they're not right. They're not the way that they're supposed to be. So, I've got to go back out, buy more lumber in this crazy price bubble. Even though the bubble's popped, we're still paying for the price bubble lumber for the most part, and remake these all again. Luckily, these cross members, they don't change in size, so I can keep them. I just have to remake the legs, and I'm going to do it with my power tools, and I'm going to try to do it really quickly so that we can wrap this up today. So, back in a moment with new parts. And through the power of movie magic, we are back in business. And this was actually really valuable for me to have to cut these like this without filming each step individually, because I could find out just how long it takes to make a set of these sawhorses. And to get to this stage where all these pieces are cut and nothing's assembled, it was only about an hour. That's using power tools, and having built a set somewhat before, so I kind of knew the steps ahead of time. Still, doesn't take that long. These seem really complicated, but they're not. They're just a couple compound miters and some bolts and holes. Nachos, lemon heads, my dad's boat. So from here, we just have to put these back together with their bolts and then put these cross members on. And I'm gonna show you how to tie them together with a rope instead of having to use a ratchet strap or some fancy strap that you have to buy. It's kind of useless. One really important thing about when you're assembling these cross members to the legs is, one, that they go on alternating legs. So this will attach to the outside leg and then the inside on the other side. When we flip them over, it'll be the same thing. That way they can open up. But the really, really important thing is that these are precisely 6 inches from this corner. All the measurements will be in the plans. I'll talk about the plans in a second. But very, very important. If this isn't perfectly correct, then your legs will rack, or not rack, they'll teeter and they won't be flush. Ask me how I know. Okay, we can already open up a lot further, and the cross member fits in. Boom. It pays to do things correctly, and that is just because the ground over here is really uneven. See, once I get off that hump, rock solid. The only thing is, you can still do this. So, how do we stop that from happening? We have to lash this cross member to that cross member, and I'll show you how to do that with just a small bite of rope and a couple knots. We're gonna need a piece of rope about 10 feet long to start with, 3 meters. You could obviously go shorter, but if you haven't done this before, start longer so you have more to work with. First thing we're gonna do is tie a bowline or a bowline around this end. So we loop this over, take this end with your hand like this, flip it back towards this cross member so you make a loop. Then you take this end of the rope, push it up through, so you've made another loop. Then you take that end of your rope, run it through, pinch it, and then just pull until that loops over it. One more time for those in the back. Take your rope over and under, grab it, flip it away from yourself, pull a loop up through there, take this end, run it through that, pinch it back on itself, and then just pull. And there's a bowline. The nice thing about this is it is easy to take off, but it won't slip. Next, we're gonna do a trucker's hitch to cinch this towards that. We're gonna do the same thing we did for the bowline, where we take the rope, flip it over, make a loop. Now this loop we're gonna leave there. This piece of rope, or end of it, we're gonna run underneath this cross member, take the end, run it back through our loop, and then I actually like to run it underneath again, just so I can get some leverage. Foot on there. Actually, I should do it so you can see it, and cinch up. And I mean, you can really get some strength on there. And then since we've gone back underneath it, it's really easy just to pinch that down. Doesn't lose any tension. We'll wrap it around there twice till we're up like this. Take the rope, pull it back through. And again, this ground is super uneven, but now those are nice and tight. Cross member doesn't want to come back out. At the end of the day, when we're done, just pull that, undo everything. That little bit pops right out. If we want to use our rope for something else, and to get the bowline off, you just take this end of it right here, press it over, and you can undo it. Now, why the hell would you fuss with all of this, with tying a rope every single time you want to set up your sawhorses? Well, yeah, it's kind of stupid, but gives you a chance to practice your knots, and I can guarantee you that that bowline and that trucker's hitch you will use constantly. So if you don't know how to do them, now is a good time to learn. You'll use them every time that you operate your sawhorses or put them up, and you will use them a lot in your life. Oh, ooh, no. No. Okay, they are not good chairs or things to sit on, but damn it, we got ourselves a set of sawhorses that are foldable, modular, pretty easy to build, pretty inexpensive, relatively lightweight, and damn it, made by us, and that's what's important. But the real question is, how strong are they? Destroy them! Don't you need to use these for a project? Yeah, so as much as I want to strength test these until failure, because I think they can hold thousands of pounds, and I want to show that they're stronger than those metal ones you can get from the home store, I can't. I built them for a project. I need them. They are purpose built. But these little guys, we could break. So hear me out. I've never had a video get to 10,000 likes, and if this video can get there, I will make another video strength testing these until failure. Now, why would that be exciting? I actually think they can hold a lot more weight than what they look like they could. I built them 100% to scale, and if you think about it, they're built in the same way these are, and these are meant to hold a lot of weight. So if these are 1/10 to scale, then theoretically, and I'm no theoretician or mathematician, but I would imagine that these ones in particular could hold 150, 200 pounds. I feel like I should be able to step on them, and I kind of want to find out. So if you want to find out too, hit the like button, and let's talk about plans. Sun's getting real low, big fella. So if you want a set of plans for these and you want to build them for yourself, I highly encourage you not to buy many of the counterfeit plans out there and go directly to the original designer, which is woodshopdude.com, and I'll leave a link to his website down in the description. I could have tried to pass these off as my own or tweaked the plans a little bit to make them my own, but I'm not a dick and I want to give credit where credit is due. Not to mention I bought his plans and I found them to be extremely well written, well documented with pictures, cut lists, and everything you need to build a set of these while being inexpensive. So I recommend getting a set of plans from there. I just wanted to show that you can make some complicated cuts with just basic hand tools, some saws, a bit and brace, tape measure, the basics. This kind of dovetails into the video I made the other week about finding inexpensive tools at woodworking estate sales, so I highly recommend you check that one out if you haven't seen it already. If you really want to support the channel, honestly, the best way you can do that is Patreon, or if that's not your thing, just hit the like button and leave a comment down below for the algorithm. It's more helpful than you know. Sharing is a really good way too. But now that we have sawhorses in hand, hopefully you've gotten your work up off the ground, or in my case, we have something to display in our front yard while I sell off almost everything in my shop is what I'm gunning for. So that's going to be kind of a fun series. I'm starting over. And until the next video, keep up the good work.